Set sail for the rugged shore north of Everdell. This is our review of Farshore.
Farshore is a worker placement hand management game set in the world of Everdell, but it's not an expansion. And I had just as much fun playing this game as I did the original.
Farshore takes some pieces from Everdell and modifies some of the more complicated mechanics, but the question is do you need to own both? We'll let you know after this quick how to play. Farshore is played over 4 seasons, with each player taking a series of turns each season before moving on.
On their turn, players can either place a worker, play a card, or prepare for the next season.
Players place their workers in order to collect the resources needed to play either construction cards or critter cards.
When a player can't place a worker or play a card, they reset and move on to the next season while also activating some mid-season abilities.
Once all players have made it through all 4 seasons and passed on their final turn, the game ends. And all players add up their points. The player with the most points wins. We were sent a copy of Farshore from Starling Games so that we could do this review video.
If you'd like to find out more info or buy the game, check out the link in the description below.
Farshore is a brand new game in the world of Everdell. It's not an expansion, it's its own standalone game, and basically it takes some of the best mechanics from Everdell, recreates them, and gets rid of some of the more complicated ones. I thought they did a good job of making it a lot more user-friendly. I love Everdell. It's one of my top 5 games. I think I'd give it a 9 when I review it. We haven't gone through all the expansions yet, but we will. And I'd say that this one is just as much fun, and for players who maybe don't want as much complication as Everdell can present sometimes, this is definitely a good intro game to the world of Everdell without going too easy on the mechanics.
Some things you'll notice and expect right off the bat. The artwork itself, always great. I love how they set up the world. You got the little animals and things like that. Speaking of animals, we have animal themes. So as always, your meeples are these little, there's a duck, a crab, I think there's a puffin. Very sea themed about this. So for all you nautical fans, you really love it. Some of the pieces are like these little iron anchors here. So very fun, very exciting. I was really interested to see what kind of changes there were when playing this versus Everdell.
The similarities to Everdell, you are placing a worker or playing a card on your turn or moving through the seasons. So you still have the 4 seasons as your different rounds, and then you move along through the seasons at a different pace from everybody else. And then when everyone finishes, you add up the points. You're placing a worker to collect the resources. There are 4 resources. 3 of them are construction. 1 of them is for critters. So you have the mushrooms now instead of the berries. You have these gems, you have seaweed, and you have driftwood instead of the ember, stone, and logs in the regular Everdell. You still have some action spaces that will be different each game. These are islands, so instead of the forest action spaces, you have the islands. Those have a new interesting mechanic on them in that they flip over about 2/3 of the way through the game, so they won't be available towards the end of the game. So when you have the most amount of workers, you'll have the least amount of spaces. The bay is what the meadow is, and I like the mechanic that they did here, which is if you have a duplicate, you stack them on top of each other and then you refill the bay in that empty space, so you don't have a bay filled with all the same cards. I like that mechanic. And then one of the biggest changes is the score track around the board, and each player's got to have a boat that goes around it, and when you accomplish different tasks, which they call the Windrose tasks, when you accomplish those as you play cards, so if you play a unique card, or a critter card, etc., you can move forward on the seashell track, and those will get you points at the end. And that's a very good way to score a lot of points, so that sometimes in Everdell you may score 40, 50 points. Okay, yes, you can get really high in this one, but in this one, you're pretty much guaranteed everyone's gonna get pretty close to 100. So this is a much higher scoring game.
One change that I liked is in the original Everdell, if you wanted to get a critter without paying anything, you had to find its corresponding construction building. In this one, the construction buildings basically don't have that. In order to get the critter for free, you just have to place an anchor on it as long as it matches the type. So you don't have to draw through the whole deck trying to find that one specific critter for that construction.
The anchor mechanic is one of those changes to the game that I actually don't really like. I feel like it makes it too easy. And yes, this game is made for a much broader crowd to try to get people in, to try to get people who are kind of scared of some of the mechanics of Everdell to really play this game. I think that a lot of people will enjoy this if they didn't like Everdell in the beginning. However, if you like Everdell, I feel like some of the changes that I do like in this, you can easily bring to Everdell and keep the mechanics that I do like. And I like the original construction with the critters. I don't really like the anchor in this.
So sticking with the nautical theme, there's these seashells that are kind of the points, and then as you move on the victory track, you can collect these treasures. Now if you hold on to them at the end, each one is worth 2 points, or you can use them as like a wild. So I really like this because, you know, with the decrease in spaces and you're losing the islands towards the end of the game, these can really come in handy if you just really need that one resource, right? And, you know, your workers are just so important that you don't want to waste them like, okay, I guess I'll get this one berry.
Another change that I like are the maps. So in the game, if you have a certain number of each type of card, so you have the red paw card here, if you have 3 of those, then you can collect this map. Then at the end, you'll multiply the number shell on here. So there's 2, 1, and 0, and you'll multiply that by how many maps you have. I like that instead of the events because I feel like in Everdell, the events are kind of convoluted, the special events, not the basic events, but the basic events are only worth a few points. However, I feel like the Belfair expansion kind of corrected that with some of their events that they add in where you do just collect the different types of cards. So I feel like they could have just come out with more of those cards for Everdell rather than creating a whole brand new game and having this map mechanic. All right, so Farshore overall, Lee, what'd you like about it?
Overall, I'm always a huge fan of the world they create. So this one's more nautical, so everything, you know, you got your boats, your seashells, the treasure. I do like how it's not as advanced as Everdell. You know, it plays more fun for me. I don't have to like have as much analysis paralysis. It's just like, okay, yeah, I get it. You know, not too complicated for me.
I do like some of the changes that they made, especially with the maps for the points. And I do like how they made that one rule change in the bay where if you have the duplicate card, you stack it on top of each other. So I do think that they made some good, interesting changes to this for players who maybe are a little scared off of the regular version of Everdell. What did you not like about this? If there's anything, you may have loved everything.
Yeah, I mean, I did like a lot of it. I would say one thing that kind of irritated me a little bit was I had to keep focusing on the point track and make sure you guys weren't running away in the boat. So, you know, I'd want to do this or build this, but then it'd be like, okay, hold on, let me make sure they're not getting too far ahead because this is important too. One other thing though that I'd love-hate is how the islands flip over towards the end of the game because maybe I was planning on getting that space once all you guys took your critters off it. So, but then someone flips it over and then it's like, well, okay, I guess I'll never get it now.
Yeah, I have to agree. I don't really like the victory point track. I don't really like victory point tracks on boards anyway. I think they're kind of ugly unless they're absolutely necessary to keep track of points. And I don't like how you get them with the windrows tiles. If you have the good luck of the draw and you can play the critters either from the bay or from your hand that match those, and you can really take an advantage, and someone else has a different strategy and their strategy just doesn't happen to match up with the windrows, then they're not going to get those points. So it kind of forces you to do that. And if you know this channel, you know I don't like games when they try to force you to do certain strategies. So I don't really like how those two things go together. It is a fun way to score a lot of points, and you will score a lot of points even if you're not really trying for it. You're just happen to stumble into it like, oh, I happen to get all these things. I just don't really like how that is added to the world of Everdell. All right, so overall, out of 10, what would you give this as a score?
Out of 10, I'd probably give it a 7.5.
I'd say it's probably right up there with Everdell. I'm gonna give it a 9, only because I don't really like the ship track. Now, the important question with this one, if you already own Everdell, is it worth it to own both?
I think so. But that really all depends on who you're playing with. Like we tend to play with a variety of people, so maybe this may be more their speed than Everdell itself.
I would say if you own Everdell, and yes, if you could play with other people, maybe you want this as an easier version, but I would say if you love Everdell, you don't need this. Some of the fun mechanic changes of this either have happened in the expansions like Belfair, or some of the mechanical changes like with the bay where you just stack them, you could easily take those rules and put it into the meadow with Everdell, make it a house rule, and you can get some of the better changes that this made with Everdell. So you don't really need this one, I would say. And that was our review of Farshore.
What'd you think? Are you ready to jump back into the world of Everdell? Let us know in the comments below.
And once again, we'd like to thank Starling Games for sending us a copy so that we could do this review video. If you'd like to find out more information or buy a copy, check out the link in our description below. And as always, if you're enjoying our content, please like this video, subscribe to our channel.
Until next time, I'm Lee.
And I'm Kenny. I go party like a board gamer.